on CityCast Nashville. As part of our ongoing conversation about affordable housing in this city, we're learning about the cottages at Drake's Creek, a cooperative housing community 20 minutes from downtown designed to make homeownership more equitable. To break it down, we're joined by Andy Zhu from MFX Ventures and Stephen Watts from the Southeast Center for Cooperative Development. It's Tuesday, August 19th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Andy, y'all call the cottages at Drake's Creek a co-op housing solution to our growing affordable housing crisis. A lot of our listeners might know about farm co-ops, but what does co-op mean in this context?
This is a form of homeownership that's been around across the country. If you're familiar with New York City, Chicago, Minneapolis, they have cooperatives in a lot of different places. It's just not very common here in Tennessee or really in the entire South. Just kind of like you have those farm co-ops. And what does that really mean at its core? It's people coming together to work together to run their farms or to run their businesses. And it's really just the same concept for housing. When you have a housing cooperative, you have all of the residents, let's say of a complex, of an apartment building, of a neighborhood, they all jointly own a property together. So for our cottages at Drake's Creek project, we have 60 units. And at the end of our conversion to this cooperative process, we will have 60 different units that are all owners and all shareholders of one big cooperative organization. As such, they will be entitled to vote every single year on who's the board of directors and set budgeting decisions. And so really everyone working together to kind of pilot this. So it's exciting to bring this type of opportunity to people that, hey, we want to give an opportunity for home ownership that may look a little different from the traditional path, but you're still able to make decisions about where you live. No one's going to kick you out. No one's going to raise your rent. You're in control of those decisions. You don't like the management company that's helping you take care of the building. You can fire them. You can hire a new one.
So is it similar to an HOA?
Yes. In one sense, an HOA is what? A homeowners association. You pay your dues and they manage some of the outside parts of your neighborhood and mow the lawn and make sure all that stuff gets paid. It's very similar in that case, except in order to join the cooperative, instead of just buying a house that happens to be managed by an association, you buy a share.
Is it similar to an annoying HOA?
Well, we hope not. We hope not. And the goal is to encourage, and Stephen and their team has been doing a great job encouraging and training people to say, this is not just where an HOA who's going to come around and yell at you because your lawn is too high and your flowers don't look good and you parked your car in the driveway.
So I think one of the big differences between an HOA and a co-op setup, in an HOA, the big question is, how do we make sure that we keep our home values high? Mm-hmm. Right? You're doing everything you can to make sure that your property value doesn't drop. And so it's less about the actual quality of living. And it's actually, how is this house or this property going to do on the market based on our decisions? With this model, which is called the Limited Equity Housing Cooperative model, this is not market rate housing. The value of your housing increases by 3% per year. It does not depend on those market rate forces. It's not a situation where if you decide to hang up paintings or you decide to put flowers in your lawn, where someone's going to come yell at you and say, hey, there's a different set of incentives, where it's actually about how do we live together well, instead of how do we play this game in order to benefit from the market.
The idea is that really this is participatory of the people who live there. Just like you would in your own house, you're coming together and how do you make collective decisions? So yeah, trying to take the annoying part out of it, but there's no escaping. There might always be that one guy at the meeting.
In democracy, there's always that one guy, right?
Exactly.
Well, Stephen, so tell us about the cottages. Where are they located? I checked them out on the website. Wow, they are really cute. So tell us about them.
The cottages at Drakes Creek, they're in Goodlettsville, so they're right off Dickerson Road. One of the ways that this property is financed, we were able to acquire this property was through the Barnes Fund. So when we call it a co-op housing solution, what we're really talking about is the city is searching for creative ways to keep properties permanently affordable and really live up to what the mayor said when he ran for office, which is, we want you to stay. And so now what the city is doing is trying to find different ways to fulfill that promise. And so, like I said, by changing the incentive structure to make it about permanent affordability, to make it about quality of living instead of wealth accumulation is what this project and this experiment really is all about.
When were they built?
1985 or so, 1984, 1985. So these are 40 years old. And that's part of our work too, has been to make sure these are getting renovated, because there's a lot of work that has to be done on a 40-year-old house. We're so thankful for the Nashville Barnes Fund, because you have I think a lot of people in general in this older housing stock, people talk a lot about this naturally occurring affordable housing, which just means an old house or an old apartment building that's kind of run down. And so being able to save and preserve those units and update them for the modern day is a very important solution and necessary part of the solving the housing crisis. Not just building new buildings, it's also renovating these old structures and making sure we don't lose them to the market and just ever increasing rents.
Can y'all remind us what the Barnes Fund is?
Yes. So the Nashville Barnes Fund is a housing trust fund put on by the city of Nashville. And every year they give out grants to nonprofits to build affordable housing. The idea is we're going to get everything to a good, functional, working shape that everyone's happy and safe to live in their homes. The second part, which Stephen can add to, is education and training. It's difficult work educating people, helping them learn about this new process that nobody in the entire state or city has ever heard of before. So there's nothing to point to. And just you're overcoming a lot of mistrust of government, the housing system. What are you guys trying to do here? Is this a scam? You have all of that just kind of inherent mistrust of people. And then we also have the legal side of we have to set up the cooperative, set up bylaws, set up share subscription agreements, which is how you purchase it, just like you'd purchase and sale agreement for a house. So it's a share subscription agreement. We've been doing a lot of work, which is still ongoing, but I'll let Stephen add more to how he and his team have been really doing a great job engaging with the residents and trying to help train them.
One of the things that you said, Andy, that I really want to emphasize is if an organization that wasn't invested in the quality of living of the apartment had not come in, these apartments, these old apartments that are 40 years old or so, may never have been updated. So the kind of capital expenditures that are being spent, people who have been living with roofs that are falling in and floors that are sinking or floors that are actually coming up that have floor bubbles, talking about HVAC units that don't work. So people freezing in the cold in the winter and boiling in the heat during the summer. Someone said, it felt like a sauna. When it's just when we're just relying on the market, sometimes what we get is the only incentive we have is profit. And so really trying to rethink, what does affordable housing mean? And so when we talk to residents, a lot of times they're dealing with, okay, well, our last landlord is like this. Is this a scam? I got that one a lot, right? Which is, nothing in this life comes for free. So why are you helping us? Sometimes you get things like, well, I can't own something. I'm too old. How am I ever going to take care of something like this? And what I've tried to do, and our team has tried to do, is really reframe the ownership conversation. Instead of thinking of ownership just as a responsibility, ownership is about equity. Ownership is about who benefits. When you think about this system, every single company, that is publicly owned and publicly traded has shareholders. And I think one of the big differences here is this is just shareholders and equity being distributed among people who are not used to having those benefits. It's actually buying into the cooperative itself that gives you that equity and that piece of ownership.
That's really amazing. How are you then getting in front of the community to educate them? Or are these residents or future residents coming to you, or are you going to them?
Yeah, so obviously we have lots of current residents. And so with current residents, it's been a lot of phone calling. It's been door knocking. We've done different kinds of parties before I came onto the team. I know they did a holiday party where residents came and they cooked things for their neighbors and they did it potluck style, and just having people really understand what does it mean to be part of a community that is different and that cares about you. And when you're sick, you can call your neighbor. A lot of our community members, they just didn't know each other. It's only 60 units, but a question would be, do you know your neighbors? And it's like, not really, and not really. And not only that, but I don't know them and I don't like them. It's like, well, how do you not like someone that you don't know? And it's like, because I choose to.
Did y'all hear the news? 2 of Nashville's music institutions, Musicians Corner and Lightning 100, are partnering to present Free Fest in Centennial Park. This 3-day Labor Day weekend, pet and kid-friendly music festival is a celebration of free live music. Plus, enjoy delicious local fare, vendors, beer, wine, cocktails, and more. Pull out a blanket, grab a bite, and hear some of the finest musicians from Nashville and beyond. Musicians Corner's Free Fest takes place Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, August 29th through the 31st. Do not miss performances by Yola, The Record Company, Judy Blank, Bree Kennedy, The Brummies, and many more. Then check out Musicians Corner every Friday night in September. Free Fest is presented by Amazon, produced by the nonprofit Centennial Park Conservancy, and supported by CityCast Nashville. Visit musicianscorner.com for the full lineup. Remember that amazing little cafe you discovered last summer with the perfect latte and crazy view? Or that sweet hiking spot your friend told you about, but you can't remember the name? Well, with Overlook Maps, special places never get lost again. Create personal lists of places you've been and want to go. Build your must-visit list for your next vacation, your foodie favorites for date nights, or your weekend getaways when you need to escape. Share your favorite hidden gems with friends and family, or go on and keep your secret spots completely private. Planning a trip with friends? Create a shared list where everyone can add their ideas. Visiting a new city? Check out lists from locals who know the real gems, not just the tourist traps. And here's the best part, folks. No ads cluttering your lists. No one selling your data to advertisers. Just your personal collection of amazing places, organized exactly how you want them. Overlook Maps. Collect, organize, and share the places that matter to you. Download free at overlookmaps.com and check out overlookmaps.com/Nashville to see some of our lists and great spots on a map and in your pocket. Your places, your way. Well, so I'd like to turn our attention then to the actual units and hear how competitive they are to actually get. I know that there's currently 60. How many are available now, and what are the income requirements to qualify to live there?
So the income requirements are for 50% of median income. So essentially, if you're a single person, that's 40 grand or so. And then so just depending on your household size, that goes up to maybe 50 grand if you're like 4 or 5 people. We were able to work with the city to get an exemption for current residents so that we wouldn't displace them. So that was important for us to make sure, hey, we bought this building out of nowhere. We're turning this into other thing. If you want to stay, we of course want you to join, but we don't want to punish you that you're not on the income level just because you happen to be living here before. The base maintenance fee, as what we call it, instead of a rent payment, it's like a maintenance fee or share fee. The base fee is $1,033 for the 1 bedrooms and $1,239 for the 2 bedrooms. And there's a little bit of utility reimbursables on top of that. But that is a very affordable price. It's hard to find 1 bedrooms for $1,000 a month and the 2 bedrooms for $1,200 a month. Those maintenance payments, they only need to grow essentially from now until the end of time at essentially inflation or hopefully under inflation, just depending on what the expenses are. So that monthly payment is going to go up every year, but it's not going to go up 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7% that you were seeing during COVID when people could just raise the rents, whatever. The expenses that you pay monthly will only go up by what it costs to run the building. So if insurance prices go up, then okay, everyone might have to pay $10 extra a month for more insurance because that's just what it costs, and that's inflation.
Seems like there's a lot of transparency with the residents also. Trust and transparency.
Yeah. Everyone's going to have an access to the budget. They'll all be able to see where all the money is going. And so that's very important to build that trust and transparency in the budget.
Yeah. And with that transparency comes choices. So typically when you're renting and you ask your landlord, hey, we need this extra dumpster, right? And, your landlord next year might jack up prices, never tell you why prices were jacked up. And here, I have this conversation when I'm doing trainings with residents. It's like, yes, we can have this dumpster, but this dumpster might cost $10 extra per month per unit next year. And so when you're seeing actually the consequences of your actions actually reflected in the money you're paying, it creates a different kind of relationship and ownership to your actions. And a lot of people, especially in this society, have just been living without transparency, which means there's this lack of agency. There's this lack of ability to see that our actions actually matter. And so reclaiming that is hard, it's daunting, but it's also so important because it opens up all of these options that we've never thought about.
So I'd like to circle back and talk about the income numbers that you all brought up. So what do those income numbers mean in real life? Sometimes I think people hear affordable housing and think, well, that's not me. But if 50% of area median income for a single person is $40,000, what kind of jobs pay $40,000 a year?
My job. I qualify for 50% area median income housing. A lot of our community members, when I go to community meetings with youth servicing organizations or homeless services, or most of our people who we consider essential workers, teachers, when we're talking about all of these people who make the city run, who the labor of the city relies on, most of those people are who we're talking about when we're talking about affordable housing.
How does one little cottage community address the larger housing issues in Nashville? We already know we need 90,000 more units built over the next decade, but this is just 60.
What we're hopeful to show people is how would you go about and build this in your own community? Certainly a very important and essential part is the money. So going to your government and how to ask them for the money is a rate limiting step, as you might say. But the other parts of it, of like how to organize people, how to work in this environment, because we've been working with a partner out of New York City, UHAB, the Urban Homesteading Assistance Board, who has helped and assisted in the creation of 30,000 of these limited equity cooperatives all over New York City. And we have now just 60 here in Nashville. So one of the things that we're trying to do in order to solve that problem, as you asked, is put together kind of a findings report, summary reports, and playbook and say, this is what you can go do in your own communities if you're in a similar sort of environment as us, like all over the Southeast. We think this could be a good model, but certainly in Nashville, we're trying to pave the way. This is the legal framework. Here's some of the documents that you have to use that we paid our lawyers a lot of money to draft. And here's a sample. And so reducing those barriers to entry, I think, for people to see, hey, maybe I live in a building. Maybe there's an opportunity for me to buy it out from my current landlord and produce this kind of housing. Maybe there's an opportunity. I don't think I'm ever going to own a single family house. My income's not there. But maybe there's an opportunity for me and 10 of my neighbors to come together and we want to build something and cooperatively own it together. So trying to share some of that framework and learnings that we have is what we envision. This is one step of many to get to 90,000 units.
Well, so I hope somebody is listening to this who then wants to model this in their own community or apartment complex because they're super rich and also very nice.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you, whoever's listening. But can they come to y'all for help in figuring that out?
Oh, absolutely. That's what we want to be here for as a resource.
A lot of the things in the Unified Housing Strategy report that came out suggest that we don't actually have so much a lack of housing. What we have is a lack of affordability. We have all of these apartments that are sitting in downtown vacant. And the reason why they are vacant is because they were not designed for the people who live here. They are designed for the people that the city wants to bring in. And so one of the things that makes our model so scalable is we're not necessarily always talking about construction. We're talking about the conversion of already existing units that exist on market rate and converting them to non-market rate affordable housing. When we think about housing, the reality is the most affordable place almost always is the place that you already live in. And so what we want to do is create a model that can be scaled where the housing that people are already living in becomes something that they can afford to live in permanently and affordably.
What do people not understand about folks who are struggling to afford housing here? We hear a lot of people say that folks who are struggling should just move farther out of town. I know y'all hear that argument all the time, but what's wrong with that approach?
I would love to take this one because that one makes me really upset. Forget the people for a moment. The reality is that if people that the city relies on for the city to function move out, it's the city who will suffer most. Right? If it's teachers, if it's firefighters, if it's homeless service workers, our social workers who are forced out, the people who make the city run, the city will no longer be able to function. I think the other thing that I hear the most that frustrates me is that people who are struggling through certain situations, whether it's because maybe they were incarcerated, maybe they have eviction on their record, that makes them irresponsible. Because what we're looking at is we're looking at systemic forces, and we always talk about how bad those systemic forces are. We use words like systemic racism, we use words like classism, like sexism. We use all of these words to really instill in it that it's not their fault. And yet, because everything is run by the market, it doesn't matter what we believe or whether we believe that these things are not their responsibility. In the end, we don't want them in our neighborhoods. We don't trust them. We don't believe in them because our system says that they are not believable people. They're not people worth investing in. And so I think that when the economic structure that we live in contradicts our values and the values that we have to give people second chances, or recognize that maybe that word second chances isn't even the right word because maybe they didn't do something wrong at all. Maybe they're just being punished for who they are. That we don't actually have a structure that's possible to build the kinds of system that we want to.
Mic drop. I mean, Andy, Stephen, this has really opened my eyes, and I really hope that the listeners out there further educate themselves on this. This seems like a growing concern, obviously, here in Nashville, and something obviously needs to be done, and you all are doing the work.
Just to finally add to Stephen's point, people making $20 to $25 an hour here in Nashville today, because of this income growth from California and Chicago and New York and all these people here, are considered very low income. That just doesn't, when you even just thinking about it that way, that doesn't really square with perception of $20 to $25 is considered very low income. We need our city to work for these people and for all people. But if it's not working for people at $25 an hour and you're forcing them to go to the middle of nowhere and drive all the way in, that obviously puts you want to talk the city's burden standpoint on our roads, on our infrastructure, on traffic, on all of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're going to stop becoming a city that people want to go to when the business owners can't find workers to work in their restaurants. And people said, where's the staff? Why is this restaurant understaffed? And everyone keeps saying it. It's because we don't have affordable housing here. So there's all these other outcomes that all come back to, are we a good place for people to live? And not just place for people to live making $100,000 a year, because that's the median income is $100,000. That's a lot of money. So if you have to be making $100,000 to live comfortably in Nashville, that's cutting out a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Andy's point about, you go to a restaurant, and if the restaurant just has an owner and no workers because the workers can't get to work, then what are you going to eat? Right? If you go to a movie theater and there's no one to operate the screens or no one to clean, what are you going to watch? And so all of those questions around who lives here is actually a question around what they don't say is who has a right to live here. And especially in a city, in a state where transportation is still being built out, and currently the state has blocked our ability to build transportation, it's not actually a question of pushing people out and then they'll come in every day. It's actually a question of permanent displacement, which is another word for banishment. And the question is, how many people are we going to banish before we realize that we can't live without workers?
Well, so if you're fired up like me, where can folks go to learn more?
So we have a website. It's drakescreekcoop.com, COOP.com. And you can look into all of our organizations. For William Franklin Buchanan, it's WFBCDC.org. For the Southeast Center for Cooperative Development, their website is Co-ops Now.
coopsnow.org.
And my organization helping support them is mfxventures.com.
And we'll put all that info in the show notes too. Thank you both again. This was really enlightening, truly.
Yes, thank you so very much.
I appreciate you. It was really nice to meet you.
Hey, y'all, real quick before we go, I have a favor to ask. If you would, please, it is that time of year again where we are asking our listeners to take our annual listener survey. Please visit citycast.fm/survey. Once you do, you are eligible to win a $250 Visa card and CityCast Nashville swag. It only takes 7 minutes to take, so head on over to citycast.fm/survey. That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!